Welcome.
Bonjour.
Vous écoutez le podcast Dirty Feet sur les ondes de No More Radio.
You're listening to the Dirty Feet podcast on the No More Radio Network.
Nous sommes vos animateurs,
Et animatrices,
We are your hosts, Allison Burns.
JD Papillon.
et Stéphanie Morin-Robert.
Listen in.
Écoutez.
We're gonna move you.
This episode is being recorded in Winnipeg, Manitoba. We are currently at the Winnipeg's Contemporary Dancers Theatre here, the Rachel Browne Theatre, and we're speaking with Brent Lott, who is the artistic director of Winnipeg's Contemporary Dancers. Brent, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So I would love to give a little background on yourself, and then we can get into Winnipeg's Contemporary Dancers a bit more, and the scene in general here in Winnipeg, which we're very curious about. So you studied at the School of Contemporary Dancers here in Winnipeg?
Yeah, it was kind of a funny story. I was actually at the ballet. I was in the professional program at the ballet, and I got stress fractures, and I was in my feet, and I was told I had to take 2 weeks off. But I was such a little bunhead that I snuck over to the School of Contemporary Dancers and took class there because I didn't want to get out of shape, and absolutely fell in love with it. So a couple weeks later, I switched.
And you never went back to the Royal Winnipeg Ballet School?
I went back to teach there in the professional program, but not to perform.
Excellent. And then you ended up performing for a few different companies.
Yes. First of all, it was called... Fortunately, I got a Canada Council grant right after graduating. And back then they flew you to Toronto. You had to take a dance class, and then you had to do a solo or a duet. And it was all like at the Betty Oliphant Theatre or something like that. And it was very, very different than it is now. But I got a grant, so I got to go to New York, and I danced for a couple of smaller companies in New York for about 4 months, and then I came back and danced with a company called Dance Collective, which was 2 choreographers, Ruth Cansfield and Gail Peterson, Hiley, and then it morphed into the Ruth Cansfield Dance Company, and then I danced here.
Wonderful. So grand return to Winnipeg, and then dancing for the Winnipeg Contemporary Dancers. And as far as I understand, your interest in dancing for this company was to get into choreography.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had been mostly working with Ruth Cansfield. It was a kind of a single choreographer company. She did bring in some guest artists. We got a chance to work with Ted Robinson and Davida Monk and Errol Reum, but I never worked with choreographers who had created by using improvisation. And Tom Stroud, who was the artistic director here then, was doing that a lot. And so I approached him and asked him if he would be interested in hiring me, and that I had an interest in choreographing, and that I really thought that if I had the opportunity to work with him, that would help me on my journey towards becoming a choreographer.
So about 5 years performing, and then you became his assistant and eventually took over the artistic direction, correct?
Yeah, I guess so. It wasn't as easy as that, but...
And then now, what is the main focus of Winnipeg Contemporary Dancers? I understand that, the quality of work, innovation of work, and an exchange nationally and internationally, these are kind of at the core of the values here. Do you want to expand on that?
Well, I like to put together a season that... challenges our audience to think, to broaden what their understanding of what they think contemporary dance or modern dance is. So sometimes there's some more accessible pieces, and sometimes there's much more challenging pieces. And within that season, there is my work, plus I try to get local choreographers to participate in our season as well, or give them opportunities to. And then I usually bring in somebody nationally also to come in and choreograph on the company.
And for those of our listeners that aren't familiar with Winnipeg's contemporary dancers, how did it begin? What's some of the history of this company?
Well, we just celebrated our 50th season. So the company was started in 1964 by Rachel Browne, who right now on the film circuit, the documentary film circuit, there is a film about her life and creating the company, and then her work after she left the company. It's called A Good Madness, The Dance of Rachel Browne, I believe. And it's very well done. So she started the company in 1964, and then in the late 70s, Bill Evans, an American choreographer, came in as the artistic director, and he just lasted a year. And after that, they hired Ted Robinson, and that was basically defined the 80s for contemporary dancers and really catapulted the company into. Rachel had already been very successful with the company and touring, but certainly by the time Ted took over, there was lots of money. The 80s was lots of money, or the late 70s, early 80s, like a lot of money. And so the company was like 12 dancers and worked year round. It was amazing, compared to what we have now.
And the school, how did that come into formation, and again, how is that connected to the company? Again,
Rachel Browne started the school. She needed dancers, so she started training. The school is about 40 years old now. And it is a separate entity from the company. However, it wasn't always the case. But when Ted Robinson left, the board hired another American named Charles Moulton, who fired the whole company and asked them all to audition if they wanted work. I had been apprenticing with the company in my graduating year, which was the year before he came, and he came to choreograph or set a piece on the company as part of his audition for becoming artistic director, I guess. And I certainly hated the process, and I thought he was really rude to the dancers, and particularly to women, and so I had no interest in auditioning for him. And I knew I had this gig with Dance Collective, and I think only one or two of the dancers actually auditioned for him, and I'm pretty sure the only one he hired was Deanne Kuby, who had been married to Ted Robinson. She was a beautiful dancer. She still is. And then Charles Moulton hired dancers from Toronto and dancers from New York. He paid for their flights to Winnipeg. He put them up at the fanciest hotel in Winnipeg during his whole creative process. So they got per diem, He did 2 shows. The second show, there was guys waiting outside to beat him up. They hated the show so much. I mean, I just got back from New York and I saw that show, and he was in a pink bunny suit talking about the size of his dick. It was just for no reason. I mean, if there was a good reason, sure, yes. But he got. I don't know what happened first. If the board realized that he was sinking the company financially, or that his work was not something they were interested in promoting anymore, but he got fired, and then they found out that the company was in a almost $300,000 deficit position, and that was really, really difficult, and that's what Tom Stroud inherited. And
had to fix somehow, or try to.
Yeah.
Wow, that's such a story. It's a lot of drama.
Oh, God.
And so the Winnipeg contemporary dance scene has obviously changed a lot over the years since you've been a part of it. How do you see it evolving, and how far has it come, and where do you see it kind of progressing to now?
Well, I think the independent community in Winnipeg is stronger than it's ever been, and I think that is probably the where the future is. I see Winnipeg's contemporary dancers as more providing a supporting role for that now, providing opportunities, providing dancers, providing workshops, providing longer time to create. Because when you're on your own, you need to find money to pay the dancers. You need to find money to pay for the studio. You need to find money to pay for the theater and your marketing and all of this. We kind of have that all set up here, so I'm really interested in providing more and more opportunities for those individuals that have really shown that they've got some promise and the desire, and are out there working.
And the demographic of the dancers that you work with, are a lot of them local from Winnipeg, or do they come from other cities and places?
Since I have been artistic director, I have only ever hired graduates of our school, except for once when I didn't have a guy and I hired Brendan Wyatt from Toronto and brought him in for a couple of shows. But then he was just so busy and everybody wanted him, and I just went, you know what, I'm happy with just women. And so I stuck with women for a couple of years, but now we have some guys who've been graduating from the school, and actually this season I have 3 guys, so I'm pretty excited about that. They're not necessarily local in the sense that they may have come to Winnipeg to come to our school, but they've all been graduates of the school. And that's not a policy of mine. It's just that the school is producing such strong dancers that I don't need to look elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. And they have some roots already planted in Winnipeg, and they know the city, they know the climate here.
Yeah, and oftentimes it's a jumping off point for them. They come and they dance for the company for a couple of years, and then they move to a bigger center to see how they can do there.
Other than this, the school stealing you away from the Royal Winnipeg Ballet School, is there a relationship there between Winnipeg contemporary dancers and the Royal Winnipeg Ballet?
Yes, yeah. For sure. Andre Lewis, who's the artistic director of the Royal Winnipeg Ballet, and he was in the company when I was in the school, so we've known each other for years. And then there's Q Dance that kind of straddles both those worlds. So Q Dance is Peter Quantz. He's the choreographer, and he's a graduate of the Royal Winnipeg Ballet's professional program, and he does very contemporary ballet, and he uses the ballet dancers from the company, but he's used one of WCD's dancers as well. So he kind of straddles both worlds, and we come together quite a lot. Both the ballet and WCD tend to do some of the... we do the Carol Shields Playwriting Festival every year. At Nuit Blanche, the RWB opens up their Founders... I think it's called Founders Theatre now. It used to be Founders Studio. For Nuit Blanche and Culture Days, and they always invite us to perform there with them. Yeah, so it's good.
And then going back to like the independent scene, do you ever work with the Young Lungs Dance Exchange?
We partner with Young Lungs Dance Exchange a lot. We provide them usually with free space for their choreographic labs and their workshops, which sometimes is 5 weeks out of the year. Yeah. I mean, the Young Lungs Dance Exchange, when it started with 2 or 3 of our company members. Yeah. And they still are very involved.
And we didn't get a chance to speak with them, but as far as I understand, they work with Manitoban artists?
Correct.
Yeah, and they kind of help people get from city to city and do an exchange?
I'm probably not the best person to speak for them. Basically, they, I believe, would be more of a service organization. So they're providing opportunities for professional development for Manitoba artists.
On the side of audience development, you were talking about choosing a program that would, both please and challenge your audience. Other than that, how do you go about engaging them? Do you have other initiatives or strategies?
We have something called Random Acts of Dance, which takes dance basically to the streets or to the fields. We have a little 8x8 riser that's in 4 sections, and then we have these coffin locks that we lock them all together, and then we have this little 8x8 piece of dance floor we tape down, and we have made 3 20-minute pieces that get performed on this box. And so we have done the Winnipeg Folk Festival, which has been a beautiful site to do it in, because we get to be off on the side. We have our portable sound system, and it was off on the side with the big prairie sky behind it. One day we were dancing this piece, and this swarm of dragonflies just decided to dance above the dancers while they were performing. It was amazing. But we've done it in public libraries. We do it in malls. We've done it at the Red River College here. We've done it at University of Winnipeg. And then sometimes people actually ask us to do it. So this past year we were asked to perform it at the Barge Festival, which is at the Forks. They set up a stage on the river, and we were asked to perform there. We were asked to perform at the Human Rights Museum. So it's a really important tool for us to get out there and reach people that we wouldn't normally reach, and not people, and it's always free. So that's one of our biggest things we do. I mean, we also participate in things like the Carol Shields Playwright Festival, the Trunk Festival. We're kind of all over there.
And then this kind of rumor on the fringe circuit for sure is about the audiences in Winnipeg and how accepting they are and how excited and enthusiastic they are. And we've definitely witnessed that being here. And as far as I understand, that's a year-round thing as well. So do you feel very supported by the patronage in this community?
Oh, yeah. We got some beautiful long-time supporters and some new ones. And what's exciting is that the students in the school, as part of their student fees, they get a season subscription. Well, they don't come alone. They bring their boyfriends and girlfriends. So we are constantly getting young people to come into our space and get exposed to modern dance, which is great.
I think one of the things that is really important in sometimes either a smaller city or a city that's kind of cut off from other cities, as Winnipeg is to allow children and young people to see that dance is an option for them. How do you kind of incorporate that into the company or into the school, reaching out to even younger audiences than the company, perhaps?
Well, we participate with several performing arts schools in Winnipeg, going in and choreographing and teaching in the schools. We haven't done much work with the really young ones, but of course our school does have a general program. So they have everything from parents and taught class all the way up to the adult classes. We did do a 6-month workshop with youth at risk that culminated in them having a show. It ended up being about a 50-minute show here in the Rachel Browne Theatre, and Yeah, it was a beautiful experience. So I got to work with these young people for, I think, about 3 weeks pretty intensely. So they worked for 6 months with a variety of different artists, video artists, visual artists, rap artists, and then the dance artists that I provided. And they created all this stuff, and then I came in at the end and worked for 3 weeks with them to take everything that they had built and put it into one show. And it was an amazing experience. We had one young woman who always had to have her, I think, about 8-year-old brother with her because her mom was off working. And she was from a single-parent family, and one day, the sister, the young woman who was in the program, had to go to be at the doctor's with her mother to translate for her mother. So she left her younger brother with all of us. He was, he knew all of us. It was like his second home. And when we were doing her sections, he just jumped in. And he had learned it all, but just, I don't know how he learned it. But he knew all the moves.
The understudy.
I know. And it was just amazing. And then he was here at the theater, we were in here for a week teaching them all about lighting and theater protocol and stuff like this. And at a certain point I went, "Do you want to be in this show?" And he went, yeah. And so we just had to have his mother sign something, and we incorporated him into the show. So
wow,
it was fun.
That's a beautiful story.
Yeah. So we take opportunities when we can. It's not something that we don't have something that's the same every year.
And you spoke a bit about video artists and other artists coming in. What is the collaboration or exchange between other art forms and dance in Winnipeg like? Pretty
big. I mean, collaboration seems to be the way to go. It just reinvigorates you and opens up all kinds of possibilities. I just did a show with 4 musicians who played live for the production, and we also had James, our wonderful technician here. He's a video artist, so he did the video for that production as well. And it was video that was, I had moving screens, so somehow he managed to get the video in the right place at the right time all the time. He was amazing. I kept on running as I was choreographing. I'd come up with an idea, and I'd run over to his office and I go, "Is this possible? Can I do it?" Because if I can't do it, I might as well not, create it. And he goes, "Yeah, I think I can do that."
So there's a lot of exchange between different art forms here. It seems to be the trend.
I think it's the trend everywhere.
Everywhere, yeah.
I mean, it's always existed, but I do think it's becoming more important. And I think with the changes in the Canada Council, it might be even more important.
You kind of mentioned the skeleton of what a usual season looks like with a national artist coming in and choreographing on the company. Can you give us the layout for the next season so that we can kind of give an idea?
Well, we open up the season in October with a show called Gorge that is part of a prairie dance circuit that myself and 4 other artistic directors of prairie dance organizations or companies started to develop 5 years ago. So as it is working in this incarnation for the last... So now we've got 4 directors and... representing Winnipeg, Edmonton, Calgary, and Regina. So we've got Brian Webb in Edmonton. We have Nicole Meon from Calgary from the Fluid Festival. And then we have Robin Potra from Regina New Dance Horizons. And each of the last 4 years we chose a city that would be the touring city. So we would choose let's say, so last year was our 50th year. So as the 4 directors, we went, oh, that should be the year that Winnipeg tours. So I, as the artistic director in Winnipeg, choose a choreographer. And then I put their name forward to the other directors, and if we're all excited about it, then that is the choreographer that will do a half of a show in Winnipeg, and then they will do half of a show in Edmonton, and the other half of the show in Edmonton will be local artists. Same. Then Nicole programs the work as part of the Fluid Festival, and then Robin does that same show, and half of the rest of the show is local Saskatchewan artists. So last year in our 50th, it was our year, and so we did the half of the show, which was the touring half, and then the other half was supposed to be local. So I chose Ming Han to be the choreographer, and she had an existing work that had not been seen outside of a gallery setting, and it had been done, I think, 3 years before, that I asked her if she would do in Winnipeg. So this year, it's a Calgary artist, Helen Husak. So Helen Husak has created a new solo for herself, and she's created another solo for Kate Stachko, I think is her name. I'm sorry if I have that wrong. So those 2 solos are coming to Winnipeg. And the Winnipeg portion of that show is a new duet that company dancer Joanna Riley is choreographing, as well as a new solo that I have created. So that's our first show in October. Then I'm kind of mostly in creation, so we don't have anything until January, where we are presenting Paul-André Fortier's Misfit Blues. So we'll have Robin Patra and Paul-André in the city here performing that work. And then we have, at the end of February, we have the performance of our emerging company, Verge. And that is something I developed about 4 years ago for graduates of our school. So I offer an opportunity to be in a situation where we work as much like a company dance as a company as possible. So it's 5-week intensive creation period. Class in the morning, 9:30 to 11, 15-minute break, work till lunch. Then you get your lunch, and then you work to 5, and you do that for 5 weeks, and then we basically have a show that's pretty raw, and it's not polished. We're creating right up to the last minute, and so we're not actually rehearsing it. And it's always a very exciting show. So I pick 2 or 3 dancers in their graduating year, and then they get to stay in the emerging company for 2 years following their graduation. And of course, if they get work in another city and have to leave, that's absolutely fine. That's what this is basically set up for, is to give them an opportunity to work like in a company situation and have something on their resume that shows they've had some professional work. So that's the end of February.
So is the Verge project something, that category where you were talking about being more supportive for independent artists and kind of giving them that gap between being part of the company and...
Well, that is kind of how I'm trying to support the independent dancers, or the people who are graduating, because I can't hire them all. Before they head off to a big city, I think it's really important that they have some professional experience, and then someone can actually call me and talk to me and say, hey, I'm interested in this person. What was your experience working with them?
Mm-hmm. And you have a perspective as an employer rather than just a teacher.
Absolutely, yeah. When I was saying supporting the independent, when I was talking about that earlier, I meant the independent choreographers. Okay. Providing them with opportunities to choreograph on our company and have our space and stuff like that.
So lots of levels of support.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then we have in April, we have a show that is all duets. So it's going to be a new duet by Ted Robinson on independent dancer and choreographer in Winnipeg,
Alexander Elliott.
And she's Ted is creating a duet on her and Ian Mosden. Then I am bringing in Lysandra Dodson from Fredericton. She is a graduate. Actually, we were the only two graduates of 1990 from the school. We graduated together, and then we danced together for years. So I'm bringing her back, and she's creating a new duet on two of our dancers. And then I have a new duet in that show, and a piece from my repertoire. Possibly. This is not confirmed yet, and maybe if Paul-André Fortier listens to this might be the first time he hears this, but possibly a duet that Paul-André Fortier choreographed last year for New Dance Horizons Men's Festival in January of 2015, and I was out of town when he kind of showed that piece here in Winnipeg before it went to premiere in Regina. But I've seen a DVD of it, and I absolutely love it. So if I can find a way to put that in our season, I'd like to do that for sure. So that's the April show. And then our final show is in June, and it's going to be not in the Rachel Browne Theatre. It's going to be in a larger venue, the Gas Station Arts Centre in the Osborne Village, and that's going to be my new full-length work, which is going to be a collaboration again with James, the video artist, and I'm hesitating to say exactly what it is because it might change by next month, possibly with some local drag queens. And it looks like it's going to be part of Pride Week celebration next year, so it will be a Pride event next year.
Wonderful. I have to say we've had the good fortune of being able to perform at this theatre while we were participating in the Fringe Festival here in Winnipeg, and we can attest to the fact that James is a wonderfully dedicated technician who really understands dance, which is a pleasure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for Verge, it's just basically the two of us. I stage manage, and he runs the booth, and we make the lighting design together ourselves on the fly with what we have, and it's delightful to work with him.
I feel like I have a much better understanding of the company and of dance in Winnipeg.
I remember I started a thread and never finished it, and that was when I was talking about Charles Moulton and the deficit position that he put the company in. Sure. At that time, it was very iffy whether the company would continue to exist. So Rachel Browne, who was always very smart, suggested to the school that they separate themselves financially and get their own board of directors and everything, so that if the company, was no more, the school could continue to thrive. And so, yes, so now we're two very separate entities. I mean, we're both in the same building. We work together very well. Verge is basically, a collaboration of the school and of the company. It's the school looking out for their graduates to make sure that they get a good jump start to their careers. But that's why I brought up Charles Moulton and the deficit, just to kind of clarify that the school is a separate entity from the company, but we're sister organizations.
All right, we've been speaking with Brent Lott, who is the artistic director of Winnipeg's Contemporary Dancers, here in the Rachel Browne Theatre in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Thank you so much for joining us and taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been fun.
The Dirty Feet podcast is produced and hosted by
Produit et animé par
Allison Burns,
J.D. Papillon,
et Stéphanie Morin-Robert.
We have Mainline Theatre, Montreal Improv Theatre, and Paula Flalo to thank.
merci pour le soutien.
Vous pouvez visiter notre site web, écouter les derniers épisodes, lire notre blog, nous aimer sur Facebook et nous suivre sur Twitter.
You can visit our website, listen to past episodes, read our blog, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter.
Show us some love and help us spread the word.
Montrez-nous un peu d'amour et aidez-nous à passer le mot.